Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Lawrence's Let's Plays. Today I'm bringing to you part one of a 5-part series where I'm going to be breaking down exactly each character class, the legendary heroes of each character class, and reviewing and assigning them a grade. You'll see that I did upload to my YouTube channel a very long, almost 2-hour long video. So for those of you that even watched a couple minutes of that video, or any of you that were troopers that watched the whole thing, thank you so much for the support. But I recognize it's way too long, so I'm going to go ahead and split this up. This is going to be legendary reviews and grades from that video. I'm cutting it up into 5 separate videos, so that way you're able to find the character class you're most interested in much easier. But to my returning viewers, thanks so much for your continued support. If you're new to the channel, thank you as well for stopping by. Nothing left to say. I'm Lawrence. Let's play. Let's jump in here to the gallery. First off, we're going to just start from fighters and work our way down. Salazar is amazing. Why is Salazar so good? In his ult, he bleeds the target. What does bleed do, Lawrence? Deals damage equal to 1% of the target's max HP per sec, and increases their physical damage taken by 10%. Does not stack. Also, restores 3% max HP for every 7 crit hits landed. This can be reduced to every 5 crit hits, so you're going to want to build this guy with crit, because he does have some self-sustain, some survivability, where he's able to basically leech to get health back. Also, another important thing to note about him, 6,500 basic attack. It is the highest attack of any fighter in the game, I do believe, and I believe it may be the highest attack of any unit in the game. Where is he going to excel at, and what would I give him as a rating? Well, to be quite honest, he's going to work everywhere, except one exception. You're not really going to use them in anti-air, you're just not going to use them in anti-air arena, as those enemies fly, and he can't hit airborne units. He's not a hero that does that. He can only hit ground-based units. But his ult is crazy strong. It does a lot of damage. 6 strikes, 5 strikes do a certain amount of damage, and then the last strike does additional damage to the enemy. He's fantastic in Guild Boss. You're going to use him in Void Rift. You're going to use him in like sustained DPS arena. You're going to use him in arena other than the anti-air, and also you're going to be able to use him all throughout the campaign. Gear raids, he's going to be usable. Gear raid 2 for sure. So overall rating for him, I'd give him an S+. He's also, because he belongs to the Nightmare faction, which is probably the second best guild boss team you can put together, number 1 being Infernal. So next we're going to go to Vulka, who's also Nightmare faction. Here's the thing with Vulka, I believe it's tied 110. I'd have to check that to be for certain. Let me jump in here real quick and see. So tied, I believe it's 110. See if I'm right. No, I'm wrong. It's not 110. What is it? Hold up. It's one of these tide levels. Where is it? It's hard to see it, but anyway, I digress. In one of the tide levels, once you beat it, you get a specific Vulka stone, and why that's important is the main reason you use Vulka. If you go into her awakening, because certain heroes have their own awakening stones, and you'll find those in the shop. Allies revival time reduced by 25%. That is huge. That's really big in a lot of different areas content wise. As far as the damage she does, I'm not really sold on her damage. Like, would I choose her in place of like Zillu or Salazar or like Arrogance or Abomination? No. But I would put her in my team comp if I feel like it's a stage that maybe I don't have the best healer and I might lose some heroes, for her to reduce the revival time. And she especially works in concert very well with Laurel, who Laurel typically you put down and then you immediately recall, so she boosts the rage of 2 of your units in her heal range by 50%. So wouldn't really use her very often, other than just putting her in the team comp for the minus revival time once you beat that tide stage, which I believe it's 100 or something. I forget which one it is. So overall rating for her, you can use her throughout. Like, she'd be helpful in the campaign. She'd be helpful in a lot of different areas when you're just trying to reduce revival time. I would give her an overall rating of a B+. Zillu. Zillu is amazing. First and foremost, she is the queen of Guild Boss. Valeria might have a say in that, the new Chaos Dominion chick, but I would say Zillu is still number one. She's an absolute monster. What makes her so good is her ult. Will of Hegemony. It lasts for a ridiculous amount of time. It does a ridiculous amount of damage, and also provides burning. 20% magic damage per second. Burning effects from different sources can coexist. This ult can last for up to 35 seconds with full skill ups, and I will look at her awakenings real quick and show you that if you're fortunate enough to have an A3, extra copies of Zillu to get her to A3, Will of Hegemony duration plus 10 seconds, which is quite nasty. Actually, I do want to show one more thing about her. 100% damage to one enemy, that's, whatever. Includes airborne units, so this is very important to note that she can be placed on the ground, as she is a hybrid fighter / ranged damage dealer, and also block targets take 20% more damage, which is great because her passive flows into that, charges energy after 3 seconds and not dealing damage, increases damage by 5% per second up to 25%. The charged energy will be consumed in 1 second, and the damage increase will end. The damage increase goes up with skill ups. Why this is important is because the best way to put Zillu to, regardless of the content you're using her, is directly behind a solid defender, like a Captain Reeve, like a Regulus, like Brocure if you were fortunate enough to get him, or Olag, because she's not really going to be taking damage. They're going to be blocking the damage, so this is how she avoids the damage and ramps up her own damage. She is amazing. Again, she is part of the Nightmare faction, second best faction in the game for Guild Boss. So again, she's unbelievable in Guild Boss. She is the queen of Guild Boss. You're going to use her in campaign, Void Rift. Gear Raid 2, for sure you can use her on the ground to face the Zillu boss to help deal damage to kill her as quickly as possible, as that's one of the key components, is killing Zillu as quickly as possible in the later stages, so she's not spawning the ads over and over. And also, pretty much anywhere. You're going to use her in all kinds of places in the game. She's absolutely an S+ as well. Valkyra. What I like about Vyra is if you get her Awakening 1, which I do not have yet, it does increase her attack range, which is nice. She actually does quite a bit of damage. She's pretty solid, and also she does inflict vulnerability magic damage on enemies on her basic, which means that they, as soon as I select it, magic damage taken is an increase of 15%. Her ult, she increases her own damage by 40% for 20 seconds. Also, that goes up. Duration 5, so for 30 seconds. So she's ramping up her damage quite nice. And if you see in the little window there, her attack range, it looks quite cool. I love the animation on it, how she kind of, darts forward with her sword and stuff. But she's pretty solid. Immediately revives one allied unit in range and restores 50% HP for them. This effect can only be triggered one time per deployment and does not revive the hero herself. So she actually has the ability to revive her allies too. She attacks with magic damage. She's quite solid all around. I do have her. I don't have her at A1 yet, but she's pretty solid all around. You can pretty much use her throughout the game. There's just places I wouldn't use her. I wouldn't use her in Guild Boss because she's part of Northerner, which is not one of the best teams to put together for a team comp. But throughout the campaign, for sure, you can use her. She's a very solid hero, and she has really nice range too, especially if you get her at A1. Arrogance. Well, he's amazing, absolutely amazing. I did not get him during his banner, which I was very upset about. He has a talent. Demon Bow inflicts burning on the target. Demon Blades in normal stance. 30% chance to increase hero's attack speed by 40. Stacks up to 3 times, so you can boost his attack speed up to 120 for 10 seconds. You will get his ult. This hero enters Berserker stance, dealing 280% damage with each attack. Launched, increasing basic attack range. When attacking any distant target, the hero's weapon transforms into a demon boomerang. A boomerang deals AoE damage equal to 20%. So what's important to note about him is that he, like Zillu, is a hybrid fighter. He's a ranged / melee unit, so he can be used in all kinds of content where there are flying enemies and ground-based enemies. So he is going to be really good for you all around. His damage is bonkers. He does fantastic damage. You see that he has very high attack at 5248 for a fighter. One of the best fighters in the game. One of the best heroes to have in Guild Boss. I wish I had him for Guild Boss. You're going to be able to use him in campaign. You're going to be able to use him in Void Rift. Pretty much anywhere you can think of, you can use him. You can use him in anti-air arena, just like Zillu, because they both can also hit airborne units as well as ground-based targets. S+ all day long. Arrogance, or not Arrogance, Abomination. Multi-target attack. 20% AoE damage to all enemies in front when he charges his attack through his basic. Boundless Endurance. This one's interesting because it is an automatically activated alt. You do not manually activate this. Triggers automatically for 25 seconds. Increase max HP by 50%, so it's giving him some survivability. Also extends his own attack range. Reduces physical damage taken by 20%. Again, more survivability. So kind of like a hybrid defender and fighter. Attacks all enemies in range 2 times each time, doing 60% AoE damage. And again, another hero that provides burning. He's doing 5% magic damage per second. It's a lot less burning than Zillu and Arrogance provide. But, you know, 5% more damage is 5% more damage, and it does get skilled up to 10% magic damage per second. So all around, he's pretty solid, increasing his own attack speed on a passive. When his HP drops below 40%, he does gain invulnerability. It lasts for 4 seconds, and then restores HP equal to 30% max HP. So like I say, he has a lot of survivability. His damage is not bad. He can actually smack real hard. You see his attack is 58-64. It's quite high. So he is very usable throughout as well. You can use him in Guild Boss for sure with a Nightmare team consisting of, like, you know, an Arrogance and a Salazar, for instance. He'll be putting out quite a bit of damage. He's really solid all around. I would say you can use him in most places in the game. There's certainly going to be places he won't be able to be used, like Anti-Air Arena. I wouldn't see using, or you're not going to use him in Gear Raid 3 because of all the flying enemies. He's not going to benefit you at all. But for the most part, you'll be able to use him in a lot of content. I would give Abomination, give him an A. His damage is solid. He does a lot of damage. His basic attack is quite high, and he has a lot of self-sustain. Now let's go into Araka, the Piercer Lord. God, I wish I had me an Araka. Why is Araka so good, Lawrence? Well, let me tell you. Really, you only got to look at one thing with Araka. Her Lord skill. She increases the basic attributes of all allies by 15%, but for every 1 tile away from the target, increases the damage of her star piercers by 5% up to 50%. That is throughout the entire battle. That is crazy. And also, she doesn't even have to be deployed. You just simply have to have her in the Lord skill position in your team comp, and they're going to benefit from this. And there are a lot of stages where there are flying ads that enemies are quite a bit away, and your ranger's able to hit them when they're further away before they even have a chance to attack you. Hell, a lot of times even before they have a chance to move, and they might be 5 or 6 tiles away. And I mean, look at the damage increase you're getting. Like, it's just nasty. Herself, overall damage, I'm not a big fan of her damage. It's not really all that great. But I would use her for sure for her Lord skill. That's the main reason why you're going to use this chick. You look at her hero details. 4,713 attack is not horrible. It's actually pretty solid. But again, I wouldn't use her based on damage. I would only use her for her Lord skill. But that Lord skill is so impactful. There are so many areas in the game that you want that extended range that she provides and the extended damage she provides. It certainly would have made my GR3-19 finally stage clear to 3-star that a lot easier had I had her as the Lord, just to get that Lord skill. But anywhere where there's flying ads that you want to hit from a distance, I mean, she's fantastic. She is part of the Starpiercer faction, which is it's an okay faction against Guild Boss, but again, Nightmare and Infernal is where you really want to go with that. But overall, she's very usable. Throughout the campaign, she would have definitely helped me. I could see it helping a newer player if you were fortunate enough to pull her because of that extended range. Because Starpiercers, and I have a video on this, be sure to check it out. Starpiercers are my favorite faction in the game. Overall, I think they just have the best overall damage dealers when it comes to not only legendaries, but even the epic legendaries. Some of them are quite good. Some are some of the best in the game, like Tariel, now known as Idril. But anyway, that's Araka. Overall rating for Araka, I'm going to give her an S. I'm going to take it down from an S+, just because of the fact that I don't think that using her in battle is that impactful, but her Lord skill is just amazing, and it can be used throughout the game for your Starpiercers. Lugaru, Chaotic Nightmare, Fighter. So, the thing with Lugaru is he also bleeds, much like a Salazar. He kind of reminds me of Salazar, but you see he's attacking with kind of like a sword that he summons. Reduces the cooldown of lethal strike by 7 seconds. Additionally, lethal strike ignores 30% of defensive targets inflicted with bleed. This effect lasts for 15 seconds. Skill up goes up to 20 seconds. He also has a talent. Lethal strike every 12 seconds. The hero consumes 20% of his own current HP to trigger lethal strike one time, dealing 180% damage. When the HP is below 50%, the damage increases to 60%. So he can do quite a bit of damage. Also, every 1% passive of max HP loss increases attack speed by 1 up to 50. We look at his base stats. He's very high. Attack 6172 is quite high. He does do a lot of damage. The thing with the Chaos faction is they are a bizarre faction because they are the faction that just, look, one deployed deducts 40% of his current HP immediately and increases 4% attack. It's like this faction is designed to want to die, to do more damage, which is really a bizarre mechanic. I mean, it's interesting, but I'm not a big fan of it. Increases damage in the arena by 15% is quite good, so obviously you're going to see he's very good in arena. Overall, like, his base stats are crazy high. Like, he has really high base stats. So I can see him being usable all throughout the game. Campaign, you could certainly use him in campaign. You might run him in a guild boss team because of the bleed that he's applying to the boss, to the guild boss. Rating for him, I'm gonna give him like a A. I know in arena he's certainly gonna be rated higher than that, I would say, but just because of the 15% boost to damage in arena. But overall, I would say he's like an A, because again, I'm just not a big fan of this. I'm gonna lose health to do more damage. Appan, which some people call Aspan as a joke. I don't know, I think people meme this guy out, but I don't think he's really all that bad. For every 2 basic attacks landed, triggers Piercing Javelin. This is his talent that penetrates 2 enemy targets, dealing 100% damage. Airborne units take 150% damage instead. So he's actually doing more damage because you see he is actually a Piercer fighter. So he's another one of those hybrids like Zillu, like Arrogance, that can hit flying adds as well. Penetrates 3 enemy targets and deals 4% damage to them. Airborne units take 650% damage instead, so that's quite a bit of damage. And you see with skill ups, it goes up another 100%. The damage to the ground base, excuse me, but the airborne units actually can take up to 700% damage. It's only a 450 max rage cost, which you get to reduce down to 400 with level 5. Yeah, he can deal out quite a bit of damage. Deals extra damage equal to 50% of attack for 10 seconds on his auto. Within 15 seconds of deployment, every basic attack triggers Piercing Javelin, which we know Piercing Javelin, yeah, is his talent. Yeah, he's actually quite strong. 4683, his attack's a little bit on the low side. Well, on the low side compared to some of the other piercers. But yeah, he's solid all around. Keep in mind that since he is a hybrid fighter and piercer, he is only blocking 2 units. I wish he did block an extra unit, but that's kind of reserved for defenders. But all around, I think this guy's pretty solid. I don't have him, as you can see, because he's grayed out. But I do think he's pretty solid. I could see him being quite good in anti-air arena. I could see you using him in the campaign. Also, I could see you using him in Gear Raid 3, because he's another one of those hybrid units like Zillu, like Arrogance, that you could put right down in the middle to help nuke down the Zillu boss as quickly as possible. So overall, I'd give him a rating. Based on the damage, his damage is quite nice. I'd say he's an A+. I'd give him an A+. And then we got Valeria, who I just recently summoned. This is my most recent hero, and from my understanding, she is really, really good in a lot of areas. So let's see what's so great about her. In the talent, she has increased attack and defense as HP drops. When HP drops to 30%, the increase peaks at 60%. So she loses health. She's a fighter, so she'll be losing health because of taking so much more damage, being down on the in the trenches, so to speak, down there with the defenders. She's increasing her damage quite a bit, which is nice. Let's look at her talent. Blood Infusion, manually activated alt. Deal damage 80%. Each attack consumes 10% of the current HP and generates 1 stack of power of the sword, up to 8 stacks. Hero cannot be healed during the skill. When the skill ends, deals 400% burst damage to the main target and 4 targets around them. That's a lot of damage. Damage increase goes up another 40%. The burst damage goes up 40%. Max rage cost 1,000. You can reduce that to 900. Initial rage plus 200. So she can get her initial rage to 700, and a max rage of 900 is required. That's actually pretty damn good. It is only a 16-second duration. I like to see in these skills where the duration of heroes' ults increase. She does not have that. That's unfortunate. But that's quite a bit of damage. Smashes the target, dealing 240% damage, inflicting vulnerability, physical damage. We all know how powerful that is. Physical damage taken to that enemy plus 20%. Keep in mind, again, that's not just damage she's producing, she's also applying that so the team is able to do more damage. During the ultimate, each attack reduces plunging slashes cooldown by 2 seconds. When HP drops below 30%, restores 2% HP per sec. Triggers the following effect instead. During the ultimate, the hero enters the unyielding state upon taking fatal damage and dies immediately when the ultimate ends, which can be triggered up to 1 time per deployment. So that's one of those, again, showing off this faction's I want to die kind of thing to do more damage. That's really weird. I wish that wasn't included, to be honest. The vulnerability physical damage is great, but changing the ultimate to where she has the unyielding status, and then after casting the ult, she just immediately dies. I'm not a huge fan of that. Reduces the hero's cost in the arena by 4. That's quite nice. Her cost is 17. That would reduce it to 13. So in summation overall for her, I know she's supposed to be really, really good in the arena. I have not tried her yet. I've not even started building her. I could see her being really good in arena for sure. I could see her being, other than anti-air, but the other ones for sure. I could also see her being really solid in Guild Boss, even fitting her in with a Nightmare slash Infernal team. I could see her being really solid there as well. I could see her really helping you throughout the campaign. The problem with that, with getting her though, is that she's extremely, extremely rare. I was really surprised I got her. She's part of a brand new faction that was introduced within the last month or so, and those are very hard heroes to be able to summon, so that's kind of a knock. It's difficult to get her, but if you get her, I'd say she's really, really solid. I would probably say overall I'd give her an S. I know her damage is quite good. Let's look at her overall stats, because I didn't check that, because I think they're quite high. Yeah, 6,172 is quite high for a fighter. So yeah, I would give her an S overall. And finally in the fighters, Cerberus. So Cerberus is part of the chaotic faction as well, but what's cool is he also has dual citizenship, we'll call it. Dual membership into the cultist faction as well, so he benefits from a cultist lord like Morrigan, or if you're not fortunate enough to get Morrigan, you get Aeon, like through this shard summoning that's going on now. I'm so happy they're doing that, because I did not get Morrigan, so we'll at least be able to get Aeon to get the epic lord of the cultist faction. So what does he do? First off, let's talk about his talent. He summons a Water of Decay at the location of the enemy with the highest HP at the cost of 20% of his own max HP. Again, continuing with this theme of these heroes from the cult, or the chaotic faction, Chaos Dominion they're called, want to kill themselves to do more damage. He, at the end of 20% of max HP every 14 seconds, inflicting 30% AoE damage every second for... can't read it. 6 seconds. Whenever this hero takes damage, the cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds. This hero cannot be healed or revived by allies, and each death extends the revival time by 30 seconds. So, that in and of itself is a big negative to me. So, he can never be healed, so no healer can heal him, and if you have someone, if you're fortunate enough to have someone with a revive, like I do with Valkyra, he can't be revived either. Really bizarre. Spectre Minded. During the ultimate, increases damage by 70%. Additionally, each instance of damage dealt will inflict a 50% slow, which is great. Slow is a fantastic debuff in this game, a little bit better than stun in my opinion, on the target for 15 seconds, and the damage does go up to 100%. The effect duration can go up to 20 seconds. Max rage cap at 900. I would have liked to have seen a boost to his initial rage, so he's 500 and has to get to 900 to be able to do this. But that's not bad. Magic attack basic. When deployed, immediately deals 200% AoE damage to surrounding enemies, and then creates Water of Decay beneath the hero's feet, dealing 40% AoE damage to multiple enemies per second. This effect lasts permanently. That's really cool. 2, 4, 6, and goes up to 10%. So he is going to be doing 40% AoE damage, 50, what was it? I can't count. 4, 6, 8, 10. So is that 50% AoE damage? It just says damage plus 2%. But they both are listed as AoE damage. So I'm not sure which one this is, to be honest. I'm not sure if that's an increase to the immediate damage or the overall damage. But what's important to note here is once you deploy him, this effect lasts forever. So he puts this puddle on the ground, and the puddle just stays on the ground and constantly deals damage. That's actually quite cool. And that damage can certainly ramp up over time. Upon death, also, he generates a ground effect area underneath, dealing 100% AoE damage per second for 12 seconds, and that can go up as well. And that's quite good as well. Also, you'll see that his cost is reduced by 2 in the arena to go from 17 to 15. So he can be solid in a lot of different areas. I could see where he would have helped me in campaign as an early player because of the AoE, because a lot of the problems in campaign is that you're constantly overrun with ground-based units that just overrun you if you don't have enough defenders to block them or high enough DPS to be able to nuke down the enemies as they're moving along the ground or whatever. So ground-based damage, consistent, being deployed, consistent damage is quite cool. I like that. But he does get a big knock on the fact that you can never heal him and you cannot revive him. That's really bizarre. Not a big fan of that, but the damage is quite nice, and the fact that it's continuous damage the moment you deploy him. And I'm guessing that every time you deploy him, he's doing that damage, right? So that could ramp up and be quite nice in campaign. I could see him being used in Void Rift a little bit, campaign. I could see him being used in Gear Raid 1 because of the ground-based effect. It is magic, right? Let me double check. I just jumped out. Didn't mean to do that. Yeah, it is magic damage, so those enemies are highly resistant to physical damage. You really want magic damage dealers. So the fact that he's leaving a ground-based effect, that could actually be really impactful in Gear Raid 1 and Gear Raid 2. So overall, with the one knock I'm giving him, I'd give him an A. You know what? I'll give him an A+, actually, because of continuous ground-based damage every time you deploy him. I don't think it's specified. Does it say first deployment? Let me double check that. Just says when deployed. It's not first deployment, so it's not the first time you deploy him, every time you deploy him. And since he's one of those characters that kind of wants to kill himself anyway, you might be able to deploy him several times during a battle, like in campaign and stuff. So I'm going to give him a solid A+ all around. I could see him being very useful campaign, Gear Raid 1 for sure, and Gear Raid 2 as well. So if you stuck around this long, I appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you guys. Thanks so much for sticking with me and watching the video. If you found the information in the video helpful and informative, please do smash that like button. Also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already to help my channel to continue to grow. Keep it locked right here at Lawrence's Let's Plays for additional Watcher Realms content coming your way very soon. Nothing left to say. This has been Lawrence from Lawrence's Let's Plays, and I, after almost 2 hours, am out of here. Ow, I just hit my face against the microphone. Take care, everybody. I'll see you real soon.